it's me, Anja, my pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new recent reads video. The first book on this list is called Ashes of Gold. This book is a YA open fantasy sequel to Wings of Ebony, which I really enjoyed, as I talked about in my last recent reads video. This book was so good. It was a really good, solid sequel, and I really appreciated how the author expanded on the already established world and the already established, well-developed characters. Like, the characters are so well-developed and so distinct, and they continue to be in the sequel. The romance was so well-developed, and I was so emotionally invested in this story every single step of the way. The plot was so intriguing, and it was absolutely so engaging. The characters, like I mentioned, were so well-developed and so distinct. The romance was so well-developed. The world building was so awesome, and it was so lovely. This duology is absolutely so good, and it's so underrated, and it deserves all the hype and so much more. So with that said, I rated this book 4 stars, and I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Redemptal. For those who don't know, this book is a YA fantasy sequel to Raybearer, and I rated this book 5 stars because there's nothing that I would change about it. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. There was never a point in time where I thought that there were too many characters because each one was so individual and so distinct. The world building was so good, and it was so creative, and it really made the story so much more engaging. The plot was so interesting, and it was so well done. The romance was so lovely and so wonderful, and so were all the distinct individual friendships. This book is absolutely so good. It was such a good, solid sequel, and this book deserves all the hype that the first one got, and so much more, because it was so much better. This book is so awesome, and it's so amazing, and it's so good. You know what I mean? Like, this book was so amazing, and there's nothing that I would change about it, which is why I rated it 5 stars, because I absolutely loved every single second of it. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Full Flight. This book is a YA contemporary following a young girl whose first love shapes and changes everything for her. This book was so good. I ended up rating it 5 stars. For those who don't know, this book was one of my most anticipated 2022 new releases because the previous book by this author, Amelia Unabridged, was one of my almost favorites of 2021. So naturally, I had very high expectations. This book not only met those high expectations, but exceeded them because I rated this book 5 stars. For context, I rated Amelia Unabridged 4 stars. But anyway, this book was so amazing, and it was so emotional, and it was absolutely so excellent. First of all, the writing was so lyrical, and it was absolutely so beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. It hooked me from the beginning to the very end. The characters are so well developed and so distinct. The romance was so cute, and it was so fluffy, and it was absolutely so good. Like, this book is so amazing. The writing, the characters, the plot, the story, the romance, every single element of it was so beautiful, and it was absolutely so pretty. I absolutely fell in love with the story from the very beginning to the end, and we love to see it. So, with that said, I rated this book 5 stars because, first of all, there's nothing that I would change about it, and second of all, I couldn't stop crying because this book was so emotional, and it was so well done. I will gladly read more from the author in the future because her writing is so amazing. So anyway, with all that said, I would highly recommend this book. The next book on this list is called Unseen Magic. This book is a middle-grade urban fantasy, and it follows a young girl who turns to magic to ease her anxieties, except that things don't go exactly as planned, and she must face her fears to stop an evil doppelganger. This book was so good. I had somewhat low expectations for this book because, if I'm not mistaken, this book is the author's middle-grade debut, and I've read other books by her, but they've all been YA, and they've all been 3 stars. So I wasn't really expecting to rate this book 4 stars because it was absolutely so engaging. The plot was so intriguing, and it was so well developed. The world building was so fascinating, and it was so creative, and it was so well developed. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. The friendships were so lovely, and they were so wonderful. This book was really good because it was so engaging, and it was absolutely so intriguing, and I just was so invested in it all. You know what I mean? I rated this book 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The last book on this list, and certainly not the least, is called Ghost Squad. This book is a middle-grade urban fantasy that follows a young girl who accidentally awakens malicious spirits when she casts a spell, and it's inspired by Dominican culture. This book was so good, and I really enjoyed it. This book is definitely worth all of its hype and so much more, and it definitely amplified my expectations for the author's next book, which I believe comes out in early April, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this book was so awesome, and it was so good. First of all, the world building was so interesting, and it was so creative, and it was so well developed. Second of all, the characters were so well developed and so distinct. Third of all, the friendship was so lovely, and it was so well done. Fourth of all, the plot was so engaging, and it was absolutely so intriguing, and I really enjoyed it. Like I mentioned, this author and this book deserves all the hype and so much more, because this book was so fascinating, and it was so good, and I ended up rating it 4 stars, so with that, I would highly recommend it. So, in conclusion, I rated 2 of these books 5 stars, and the other 3 books 4 stars, so I would highly recommend every single book on this list. If you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the popcorn emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video.